I wanted to take a moment to acknowledge the man that was just up here a few minutes ago. I don't know if you know, some of you know, but Randy Purcell has been part of this center for 35 years or more, I don't know, something like that. But he and a small handful of people a long time ago were responsible for keeping this church open through a lot of effort, a lot of moving beyond appearances and having faith in the unity message. And I think it's just really important in this moment to acknowledge him and give thanks for him. Shall we give him a round of applause? So once upon a time, after a great war, there was a famine in which people jealously hoarded whatever food they could find, hiding it even from their friends and neighbors. And one day, a wandering soldier came into the village and began asking questions, as if he planned to stay for the night. "There's not a bite to eat in the whole province," he was told. "Better keep moving on." "Oh, I have everything I need," he said. "In fact, I was thinking of making a nice stone soup to share with all of you." He pulled an iron cauldron from his wagon, filled it with water, and built a fire under it. And then, with great ceremony and fanfare, he drew an ordinary stone from the velvet bag and plopped it into the water. By now, hearing the rumor of food, most of the villagers had come to the square or watched from their windows as the soldier sniffed the broth and licked his lips and in anticipation. Hunger began to overcome their skepticism. "Ah," the soldier said to himself rather loudly, "I do like a tasty stone soup. Of course, stone soup with cabbage, that's hard to beat." And soon a villager approached hesitantly, holding a cabbage he'd retrieved from its hiding place, and added it to the pot. "Capital," cried the soldier. "You know, I once had stone soup with cabbage and a little bit of salt beef as well, and it's fit for a king." Well, the village butcher managed to find some salt beef, and so it went through potatoes and onions and carrots and mushrooms and so on until there was indeed a delicious meal for all. The villagers offered the soldier a small fortune for the magic stone. But he refused to sell and traveled on the next day. Obviously, the lesson is that by working together, everyone contributes what they can for a greater good, and it is achieved. My mother once said in a moment of clarity, she said, "You know, spiritual community, sometimes people think of spiritual community as a place where you come and have a sit-down dinner. But it's really much more like a potluck, where everybody brings something to the table." And I often reflect that when we are in this gathering such as this very moment, that if you aren't bringing something in hand, like a potato or a carrot or salt beef, your consciousness is contributing to the soup of this place. You. And I've worked with people over the years that have said, and I hadn't seen them in a number of weeks, and I said, how have you been? I haven't seen you. And they said, well, I didn't feel right. I didn't feel strong. So I didn't want to come and show my face. And I said, that's exactly when you need to come. That's when you need to come for healing and support and spiritual family. And they said, oh, I know. But it's almost like they were feeling ashamed of going through something. Because in some ways, the unity thought paradigm is like, well, if we're working these principles, we should be somewhere in our life expression demonstrating something that is beyond humanness. And I would say it's not either or, but it's both and. It's this wonderful alchemy of a process, a divine process of waking up and realizing the truth. In the old days of unity, in the 50s and 60s, there was this whole mindset that if you had a cold or there was something not happening that was in order in your life, that somehow you were in error. Well, we have renamed that metaphysical malpractice. It's just not so, because we go through passages and we go through challenges with our finances and with our health and relationships, and they're all our curriculum to learn, are they not? It's how we gather power, how we become self-empowered through also the process of contraction. The soul having a human experience is one of contraction and expansion. I was sitting in meditation years ago, and I had this strong feeling that my soul was expanding and contracting like breathing. And that when it's in contraction, it's gestating, it's working with an idea, it's working to overcome, it's working to release. And then when that process is in fruition, it's like there's an expansion of expression to fulfill one's purpose, to go beyond that which was previously known. Why else would we go through some of the things that we do on the spiritual path? It's certainly much easier to be comfortably numb than to be kind of on the razor's edge of our growth and our becoming and our understanding of who and what we are. And it was the same for the story in Stone Soup. I mean, this is a great metaphor for community building, for going beyond the contraction of smallness and fear and holding ourselves, our resources to ourselves for fear that we'll lose or not have enough. So there's that piece. And then there's another piece of it that I would like to share also, which is the metaphysics of Stone Soup. That the soldier in the story is really that part of us that is the witness, that is the knower, that is the spiritual warrior that shows up in a village, the village of the self, and that all of the villagers are actually part of us. And that part of us that knows, that brings that seed thought and drops it in the water. The cauldron is the container of our lives, and the fire that is lit underneath, that is the passion. And the water in the pot is the emotional life. And that when a seed thought is dropped into that water and it begins to boil, that is the chemicalization of the seed idea of the abundance of God. And that slowly, the villagers of the self, those subpersonalities, as Dr. Carl Jung would call them, those parts of us that are perhaps not awake, they start to go, wow, maybe I can take a risk. Maybe I can join in and give of my being. Maybe I can integrate with all of this enthusiasm or symbol of abundance that is growing. And that the soldier of self, the spiritual warrior, has an implicit trust, only coming to the village, but knowing the dynamics of mind and heart, and just planting a seed thought in the village of itself. So there's the story, and then there is the second tier of the story, which is how we may, in spiritual community, help each other. It's like in September, we're going to start a process here. I don't know if it'll be every week, but maybe it will. Of where we'll have a big pot of soup. And it'll be downstairs and people can bring stuff and put it in the soup in a big cauldron and let it cook throughout the whole service. And then when new people come, and by the way, this was Randy's idea. And when new people come, they can be met by an ambassador, someone that's a volunteer that takes them around to meet folks, meet me and meet other people, so they feel connected. So that as a villager, they're not hiding out within their own small self, but get it that, wow, this is a place where there's people that I can connect to and love. And they can be walked downstairs and provided a seat, and then someone goes and gets them a nice bowl of soup with no stones. But lots of good stuff. Doesn't that sound like a great idea? To build spiritual community? I think so. And it's really up to us to be willing to do this, to have the will. And this story of stone soup has a great deal to do with will. Charles Fillmore, the co-founder of the Unity Movement, said that the will is the executive power of mind. What does that mean? Well, there's 12 powers, just like 12 villagers in a village. They're based upon the idea of 12 disciples. But the will faculty is the executive power that says, for instance, I will go to the village. I will start a fire. I will put in a stone. Or I will go get my cabbage that I've been holding on to, or my salt beef, or my potatoes or carrots. These are all symbols of extension versus contraction. I mean, what are we really doing here in terms of spiritual education? Are we just, and I'm not saying that it's not great. I mean, the music is fantastic. Thank God for our musicians and the music. And the fellowship is wonderful too. But what else are we doing here? Well, spiritual education has to do with allowing the imprisoned splendor, as Fillmore called it, to come forth, to heal all of those aspects of self, to get really real and honest, and know that if we get real and we get really honest, that this is a safe place, that if we bring our good here, that there's going to be something wonderful for us if we do that and when we do that. You know, I was looking at the art that Linda Kidder has put up on the walls and looking at Leonard Winchester's art that he put up before her. This is a way to build spiritual community. And I love her art. It's so playful and wonderful. Take a look at it after the service. It's really fun. And Leonard's, you know, both of these gestures are about extension. Say, yes, I would like to share my good with my spiritual community. I would like them to know about my own inner life and how and what's important to me, my humor and my connection, or my excellence in drawing and so forth. So the metaphysics of life are really how to navigate through Earth School so that we aren't just bumping from pillar to post, wondering what's going on, or self-medicating ourselves because of our emotional pain. They're really about moving from victim to victor, to fulfilling the purpose of why we're here. And this is really a soul conversation. It's a conversation on a soul level. The story of Stone Soup is on multiple levels, but on the deepest level, it is the story of the self integrating other aspects of self so as to really stand in one's own power, as the Daily Word said today, self-empowerment. Having that connection with the Lord of our being so that we can live, not just exist, but to truly live. It's a work in progress. And my feeling is that we're all here by divine appointment to really help each other as a village, a spiritual community village. You know, Unity started out as a farm in Lee Summit, Missouri. Unity Farm. People working together over about 100 years ago. Probably one of the first organic farms in the United States. Bringing good food and spiritual food to people. So I guess in closing, I would just like to for us to get it, to claim it. That this is about extension. And for those people that are in a place of contraction, that's all allowed. That those of us that are in extension, then we reach out to those people that are in contraction. If you see somebody here that maybe is having a hard time, reach out to them. Say, can I get you a cup of coffee or a cup of tea or a cookie until we get our soup? It's really important. I'll share one more little story that comes to mind. I was with a partner years and years ago, and she came home and told me, I was in this tire store, and there was this lady in there, and she looked kind of upset, really upset, but she had ordered tires for her car, and they just started a conversation. And my partner said that at the end of the conversation, the woman looked at her and said, "Thank you for making a connection with me today. I was going to go home tonight. I was thinking about committing suicide. But now I'm not going to." We never know how impactful we can be in somebody's life. I was working in a mental health clinic way back when I was in university. And I was going through a lot of stuff. I was going through a divorce. My dad had just died. And I was really struggling to stay in school. Thinking about just taking a semester off to take care of myself. And there was a counselor there. I was in my internship at this clinic. There was a counselor there that just simply came up to me. He wasn't even looking at me. And he just simply put his hand on my shoulder. He was standing like I am, and I was sitting here, and he was just talking with somebody, and he put his hand on my shoulder. And that small gesture, from that I decided, no, I'm not going to quit. I'm not going to quit. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to get my degree. I'm going to work through my grief around my dad's passing, which I went to group therapy for a number of months, and I just worked through it. This is the possibility of being a spiritual village to each other. I invite you to just be mindful of those around you. And if you need help, reach out, because not everybody knows what you're going through. Much love. Thank you.